Um, Wonderful. So today we're going to use the time to go over the context of this opportunity, the opportunity itself, which includes eligibility requirements, the components of the application, which is one of the most straightforward applications out there, and then also selection criteria, timeline, and we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, so let's start with context. Most of you probably know about A4, but in case you don't, we are a nonprofit that is dedicated to ensuring greater representation, equity, and opportunities for Asian American artists and cultural groups. Why? What can we do? The lingering effects of the twin pandemics of COVID and anti-Asian hate continue to be felt today. So in response, many mutual aid groups, direct service orgs, community and business leaders have stepped in to take care of elders and other vulnerable AAPI community members across the city. And A4 really felt inspired to support artists who want to find their place in the ecosystem of care in New York City. So that's why we started What Can We Do? It is a micro grant opportunity for artists who are looking to support their community, as I said, in New York City with engaging creative projects that are rooted in care. So we are inviting artists with a desire to affect change in their communities to carry out a project, however small, within a 3-month period. And we'll go into details shortly. But before we get into details of this year's opportunity, I wanted to just reflect a little bit on last year. Last year is when we launched our inaugural What Can We Do? The program itself. It was the first time we'd ever done it. And it was a success, I found. It was really meaningful. We were able to support 30 artists with 28 projects over 2 months in 4 boroughs, 15 neighborhoods, working with or benefiting 11 community organizations. There were 6 parks involved, and the various 28 projects overall were able to reach, collectively were able to reach 55,000 people, which is pretty amazing, especially in such a short amount of time. So I was just going to show a few images from past programs, projects to give you an idea of the real range of projects that that we are hoping to see. So this was a Zen meditation workshop led by Ryan Lee Wong for the staff of Communities Resist. This was a story, a pop-up book workshop with the youth of Chinatown at the library there. Very cute. This was a zine created by Cindy Trin, showcasing various Chinatown celebrations and community gatherings. There were a number of our artists who organized and led dance and movement workshops for the community. This was a sewing workshop led by Karen Kang, where folks were actually able to embroider their name, and then Karen wove together each of the patches, which is really cool. And then also there are a number of artists who had an opportunity to, with the grant and with the time, to create videos and screen those videos. This was Nancy Ma's video for the Hoisan community in Chinatown. And this was Rob Chen's. This was actually a one-man show that he presented, and the grant allowed him to hire a director and just have the time to really flesh this out and present it to the community, exploring all the various topics over the past few years. And then this is Sisters in Self-Defense, led by Allison Kuo. Basically, they organize self-defense courses for the Asian American community, and they partnered with Annika to create these beautiful wraps and accessories for the students. So that's just an idea of the really the breadth of the types of projects that you might consider. I also want to mention that this project is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. Special thanks to council members of District 1, Christopher Marte and Sandra Ung from District 20. And now, more concretely, what the opportunity entails. There'd be $500 unrestricted cash award. The project engagement will run within March 1st to May 15th of this year, which is actually a longer window than last year. Last year was in 2 months, and we found that the extra time would actually do our artists good to, kind of ramp up, especially for folks that need to find venues or just need a little more assistance in getting things going. So it will run from March 1st to May 15th. A4 will also be assisting in making connections to pre-approved community organizations. So I'll go into that later, but essentially these are organizations that have already agreed to being matched with an artist for a project, and they're very excited. There's no guarantee that there will be a match. It will, of course, have to depend on timing and needs of the organization and what the artist is envisioning and all of that kind of working out. But we do have relationships with these organizations and are happy to make introductions if there's a good fit. So that's that. I'll go into more detail later. And then report of your work by May 22nd. So, giving you a few days after the end of the engagement period to put together a report, and it'll be very simple. And then also a chance for each of you to present your work, your project in either Chinatown on June 6th or in Flushing on June 15th, depending on which community you are focused on. So the online application is on JotForm. We used JotForm last year. It's pretty easy to use, so we're using it again this year. And the selection process is by a random draw for all complete and eligible applicants. So once we receive all the applications, we'll go through and check for eligibility and completion. And then we'll just do a random draw. And I'll share more about that in a bit, but okay, eligibility. So the applicant must be of Asian heritage, and that includes ethnic origin in Central Asia, East Asia, Hawaii, Pacific Islands, Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asian, multi-regional. The applicant must be a practicing artist. The applicant must be 21 years of age or older. So if you're born January 1st, 2002 or earlier. The applicant must be a resident of New York City. The applicant must, okay, so this is a new eligibility requirement or criteria that was not the case for last year. It's new for this year. The project that you envision must benefit Chinatown, Manhattan, or Flushing, Queens, and/or you must reside in or be from either of those two neighborhoods. So as I said earlier, we're getting support from council members in districts 1 and 20, and that is one reason why we're really focused on those neighborhoods. And of course, because they are such rich AAPI communities there. So if you have a project idea that benefits either, or you are from or reside in either of those districts, you qualify. And it can be both. You can be from Chinatown and have your project benefit Flushing, or be from China, like all various combinations. But yeah, that's something to note. And then let's get into the application component. There's personal and demographic questions, district eligibility, proposed project details, the option of matchmaking with community organizations, uploading your resume and headshot, and then uploading proof of NYC residence and your age. So we'll go by this one by one. So personal, it's just your standard questions, your name, your birth date, pronouns if you'd like to share, email, phone, your address, because again, you need to be, you must reside in one of the 5 boroughs of New York City to be eligible. We will also be asking a few questions, like, how did you hear about this opportunity? That's just more for our own reference, but we'd also love to know if you've received a grant in the past and if you've applied for a grant, a What Can We Do grant in the past, because if you have received a What Can We Do grant in the past, we will weight your application differently. We are weighting the random draw in favor of applicants who have not received a grant in the past. That's that. But if you've applied in the past but not been selected, then you have kind of like equal chances as someone who has not applied in the past. Okay, now for demographic, these are also fairly standard questions around gender identity, sexual identity, disability, ethnicity. This is helpful for us to know as we're really aiming to, make sure that we are reaching as diverse a pool of candidates as possible. But because this is a random draw, of course, it's random. So the makeup will be whatever it will be, but this is more just for our knowledge as an organization to ensure that we're reaching as diverse a pool as possible. So this district eligibility requirement, I'm just going to reiterate again, your proposed project must benefit either Chinatown, Manhattan, or Flushing, Queens, and or you yourself as an applicant must reside in either of these districts or neighborhoods. So, and it can be both again. Okay, so in the application itself, we will be asking for this. So you'll see it laid out here. What community or communities do you hope to benefit through your project? Chinatown, Manhattan, Flushing, Queens, or other. So say, for example, you yourself you reside in Chinatown, Manhattan, but the community you want to benefit is actually a more broad community of New York City, then you would, and not necessarily Chinatown or Flushing, you would probably mark other, or you can mark all three. We had some projects in the past that were virtual projects that were, kind of open to the general public, and not necessarily everyone who attended the workshop was from New York City. So that might be a case for you as well. And then we ask about your proposed project. So very basic project description, and this is the description that we are going to use in promotional materials. So please be clear and succinct. You have 250 words to work with. And one thing to note is this is subject to change. So if you are selected and you find that you need to make some tweaks to your proposed project, depending on various circumstances, that's totally fine. That just needs to be communicated to us. And then the proposed engagement date, if you already know. So some applicants already come in having something scheduled, they have a date in mind. You can share that here, but this is optional. We don't expect everyone to have a date set yet. And then the third question here is, how do you plan to reach the community's partners or collaborators involved in your proposed project? It just gives us a sense for how much work you've already put into thinking about this project and who will be involved. And like I said, if you are selected, there is flexibility in updating your project idea and or the community if the circumstances require. We just want to be in conversation and make sure that we know what the changes are. Okay, so matchmaking with community organizations. If you are selected as an awardee, A4 is happy to facilitate an introduction to a pre-approved community org in either Chinatown or Flushing. And these are 10 plus organizations that have already agreed to being matched. Again, there is no guarantee you will be matched with an organization, but we will try our best. So these organizations, I'm just going to share them right now. In Chinatown, we have Think Chinatown, Send Chinatown Love, Mencia Society of the Arts, and the Charles Wang Community Health Center. And then in Flushing, we have the Nanshan Senior Center, Undo Poverty Flushing, which are both organizations under the Chinese Planning Council, Korean Community Services of New York, the Lewis Latimer House, Red Canary Song, YWCA Queens, the Queens Botanical Garden, and Flushing Town Hall. That's a pretty comprehensive list there. So in the application itself, you will let us know whether you would like to be matched with one of these pre-approved organizations. So if you say yes, so you have a few options here. You can say, yes, I want to be matched. You can say, no, I already have a community organization in mind, or no, my project does not require a community organization. So if you say, yes, I'd like to be matched, you can actually select your 1 to 3 organizations you're interested in being matched with. If you say, no, you already have a community organization in mind, then you would be sharing with us the name, the communities they serve, and a link to their website, and whether or not you already have a relationship with that organization. And if you say, no, your project does not require a community organization, you will skip to the supplementary information, which is the next section. And this is the section where you upload your resume, your headshot, and share your website and any of your social media handles. This is just an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better, your body of work, and kind of what you're up to these days on social media. And the headshot that you upload, if you are selected, that is the headshot that we will use in our announcement of the awardees. So please do make sure that you're happy with that headshot and that it is as high resolution as possible. There'll also be a section where you can include a credit for the photographer. And then lastly, uploading documentation, proof of your New York City residency, and also of your age. And that's it. Okay, so where you'll be submitting is online. There's a link here. We created a bit.ly just to make it as easy as possible. And again, we'll be using this software called JotForm, which is really easy to use, I think. And the deadline is Monday, February 20th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So you have until basically the end of the evening on Monday. And February 20th, that kind of gives everyone now, a little over a month. Because it's such a straightforward application, I would encourage you to take a look at the application and build in some time in the next few weeks to get it done. Yeah, so that's that. Selection criteria, there really is no selection criteria other than the eligibility requirements we went over. If you fulfill those criteria, your name will be entered into the lottery for selection. It's a random draw. If you have received so one catch is that if you have received a What Can We Do grant in the past, your application will be weighted less than applicants who have not received grants. And then some key dates. Applications opened a couple days ago. They are due February 20th, like I said, 11:59 Eastern. And then a couple days later, we are going to select applicants based on a random draw. And by February 23rd, we will notify awardees. So that is, that Thursday. So deadline is Monday, the 20th. We'll inform awardees by the Thursday. And then in those next couple weeks, we'll kind of be working out we'll be in communication with the awardees and doing some matchmaking with community-based organizations if needed, and just making sure you all feel good about your project proposal. And then between March 1st and May 15th is when the awardees will be carrying out their projects. And then a few days later, we are hoping May 22nd, your final reports are due, and that will be a very simple, one-page report that will require, just a summary of your project, a little bit about the impact, and then also 2 photographs of the engagement. And then June 8th and June 15th, we are hoping to do a public share out of your projects. If your project or you are from Chinatown, we'd invite you to join the share out in Chinatown. If you're focused on Flushing, Queens, we'd have the share out in Flushing. We're still finalizing the details of that. But that is something we are working towards. And I believe that's it. So now I'm going to open the floor for questions. You can either, ask your question in the chat and I can read it and answer, or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask verbally. I can just call on folks. So any questions?
Hi.
Hi there.
I have a question. My
Sure.
name is Jillian. I work at Archipelago Books. We're a small Brooklyn-based publisher of translated literature. We have a couple authors and translators who would match kind of the eligibility requirements as kind of working artists in New York. And I wasn't sure if it was possible for us basically to apply on their behalf, or if they as translators have to apply directly. And we have like a couple different books that we were envisioning kind of projects around, mostly maybe like readings in the different communities of either Flushing or Chinatown. Or if it's a children's book, maybe more of like an art activity or something. But I didn't know if we had to sort of apply, like would we submit an application for each book or translator that we have, like let's say if we have 3, or if we could submit kind of one project proposal on behalf of the translator in question and then do with it what we will if we're selected.
Yeah, I actually think that either approach works, but I think that the latter approach, like I said, there is flexibility to kind of, if selected, make tweaks to the project, see who's available, see what timing looks like. So I would say that, we actually, I don't know that we've had this situation in the past, but I think we would be open to it. Of course, you just need to have all their information, right? Like their email, contact information, and ultimately they would be the ones that we're working with on this. So yeah, does that answer your question? I think you go either route, whatever kind of feels most natural at this point. But yeah, there's also the proof of age and residency that's required. So
okay,
making sure you get those documents and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And that answered my question. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jillian. I see some questions in the chat. Terry, does residency location affect the chance for being selected? Can you elaborate on that? Verbally, when you say residency location?
Oh, hi. It's just that I don't live in Manhattan, but I visit both communities, Flushing and Chinatown, very frequently. And I just wonder, since it's a random draw, how does this factor affect any chance?
Are you a New York City resident?
Yes.
okay, then you're qualified, and it will not, you know, you don't need to be residing in Chinatown or Flushing, but your project needs to benefit either of those either or both of those communities.
Okay. One more question. You mentioned one of the eligibilities is practicing artist. And how do you define that? And do we have to provide any proof or documentation?
I would say that practicing artist, so the way that we're kind of looking into, you know, considering that is by when you upload your resume, if it is clear that you are a practicing artist, that this is kind of like your life's work, then that's just really the resume is what we're relying on for that information.
Okay, so my background is in advertising work, so I'm not a purely artist, but am I going to be qualified by the process?
So I would say that, you know, that's kind of tricky. We have had folks in the past who were in communications, you know, they had communications jobs, but they did have a practice of art in their lives that was kind of like took up a lot of their time. And so we were a bit flexible on that, but I might need to get back to you, Terry. I'll discuss with Lisa, our executive director, whether or not you would qualify. So do you mind if I follow up with you after this call?
Yes, I'll give you an email after.
Okay, great. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then I see a question from Maho. Do you have Japanese organizations to match? So at the moment, we do not have Japanese specific organizations to match. But if you have one in mind that you want to work with, then you can, of course, in your application, when that question comes up, you can kind of list the organization you're interested in. Liliana, how many projects will be selected? 30 artists will be selected. So we're selecting artists, not really projects, but of course, artists are attached to their projects. So that's how we're thinking of it. We're selecting 30 artists. If I have a project in mind that would be a collaboration, should only one person apply? Yes, I think that if you are planning to collaborate with someone, it would be best if you apply as one person, and you can mention in your project description that you'll be working with a collaborator. Yeah, that's a great question. And then Roxy is asking, can translation, language justice, community organizing count as an art practice? I am leaning towards yes. I think that for the purpose of this grant is to engage the community through some type of creative, creative practice, which I think can include language justice, community organizing. Those can be, yes. So Roxy, answer your question, I would say yes. Justine, okay, Annie, I'm in the same position as Terry also. Okay, sounds good. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, if you do have any other questions, I'm just going to drop my email in the chat. It is jlee@aaartsalliance.org.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
So with some of these organizations that you guys have like already kind of been in contact with and who've kind of agreed to like be part of this project, are each of them kind of like, we have X, Y, and Z that we can like do or what we need from this project? Or is it kind of like, oh, like we're generally interested and we're open to like finding out what the projects are?
Oh,
what that-
okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Eliana. So how it's going to work is these are organizations, like I said, who have expressed interest in being matched. So what we're going to do is for any of the selected artists who basically say they want to be matched with one of the organizations, we'll kind of review their projects, their project, and we're going to first go to the community organization and say, you know, we heard from 2 or 3 artists, and here are their different project ideas. Does one or does more than one or more like interest you? And if so, we can make an email introduction. And then at that point, it's really on the organization and the artist to work out the details of the project and you know, the timing and promotion of it and everything. So we'll be making that initial introduction if there is a fit, but after that point, it's really on the 2 organizations. And really what it's come down to a lot of times is the organization will have, will have their kind of standard set of programming, and oftentimes like a guest artist will fit into that programming, or they'll have so that happens, or they will actually make time for this artist to work with them. And then I would say that there are a lot of different ways it can go. So the artist can either come up with a project that's basically benefits and serves the organization's staff or their constituents. So for example, last year, Ryan led a Zen meditation workshop for the staff of Communities Resist. And it was really, it was a 2-day workshop, and it was really lovely. Whereas for another one of our artists was a pianist, and she performed a piano recital for the senior choir at Hamilton Madison House. And so she was, you know, serving their constituents in that way. So it's, you know, I would say, again, just like come up with a project that you feel most strongly and excited about. And then, of course, you know, that might shift once you're actually selected and we get into talking about the logistics. In particular, if you're matched with the community organization, you know, there might have to be some tweaks. Hopefully that answers your question. Was that Liliana?
Yeah, thank you. That
Yeah.
helps.
Okay, great. So Terry, you're asking why random drawing? Since the selection is a drawing, how do we strengthen our application? I think the reason why we decided on a random drawing is because it makes our lives easier. We have, just to be completely frank, and also because we wanted to select as many artists as we could, while also giving them a, you know, somewhat meaningful cash award. So with the funding we got, we are able to support 30 artists, $500 each. And I think that we just decided that because of that large number, it would just be easiest to do a random draw rather than kind of making that selection. So, and in terms of strengthening your application, there really is no way to strengthen your application other than as long as you are eligible. I will say that we look at all those eligibility requirements, like I said, but there was last year, I did go through and find that some of the project proposals were not actually serving the community, did not have that community care element. So that's something to keep in mind, that you want to that your project must in some way show care to the community. Of course, care can be defined in many different ways, but as long as that's clear in your project proposal, you're also that, you know, you're eligible. Any other questions? Okay, it seems like no other questions. Yeah, we're just really excited about this. I was so amazed by all the project ideas we got last year. The 30 artists were wonderful to work with, and we're really excited to be doing this again in 2023 in the springtime. And so, yeah, just please, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. We will be posting this recording on YouTube and also linking from our program, the What Can We Do program page. And then if you have any friends or colleagues or people you know who you think would be interested, please get the word out. Yeah, we're just so happy that you're interested, and thank you again for your time.